I remember quite well again, although I was only young, when the Zeppelin got through down to Sheffield. In fact, you may not believe this, but it's quite true. I actually saw it because we lived at number 107 Dundas Road then, and there were no lights no gas lights in the back kitchen. And I think I'd gone for a drink of water or something, and I was looking through the back window, and I could see this dark object going down by the, as it would be going over the Don down towards Rodham. This long dark object, like a long cigar really, and it was only, and it made a peculiar booming noise, sort of going down, you know. And I was frightened because I was only young, of course. I was frightened. And I understand it did drop some bombs somewhere, and it dropped some on Prince Street, at Attercliffe. And at that time, my mother had to work on munitions. I think most of the women had to. She had to work on munitions, and her cousin used to come and look after us a bit. And this cousin took me and someone else, I don't know who the other person was, onto Attercliffe, and I remember seeing the damage done at this particular time.
I remember the beginning of the war, and the first night that war was declared, they blew the sirens, and we'd been told at that time that if the sirens went, we got to go onto the fields. So we all trooped out onto the field, the bottom of Chapel Flats there. We spent an hour or two stood in the field that night, and of course it was just a practice of false alarm or something. And now we didn't get many warnings at that time, not until the Zeppelins came over Sheffield.
The Zeppelins came over?
They dropped, they came over Sheffield, they dropped a bomb on the Princess Street was one of the places where they dropped a bomb. I remember going up and to see this where they dropped the bomb, because they didn't get anywhere near. We all went up to try and it had fetched a house, 2 or 3 houses down, and that's it. And another thing was, when we were in the Scouts, they brought out that in case the telephone wires were brought down, we were delegated in pairs, and we had a beat, and when the sirens went, we had to go on this beat, which was kind of a relay, you see. And my beat was from Boaty Road, bottom of Boaty Road, to Tinsdale Terminus.
And another significant thing I remember about the war was when the air raids were on. When the Zeppelins
First World War.
Yes, when the Zeppelins came over. I remember quite well, I should be about 8 years old at the time, that we used to go on my father's allotments on what they call the Chapel Flats now, near the Chapel Flats, and he used to wheel me in his barrow. And we used to go up there, and we used to take 2 workmen's dinner cans full of hot cocoa, everything pitch black, and we used to light candles in the hut and pull the blinds down because it was a blackout then, in those days. And we used to wait there while they all clear. Or at other times, and the all clear and the warning hooter then was one of the works hooters. He used to sound the warning and the all clear. But sometimes they told you it was wise to go in the open when the Zeppelins were dropping bombs. So sometimes we go on the Tinley Recreation Ground. And Mr. Brown that kept the corner shop then, he used to go with us. And many a time his language was rough. And if he saw a light in one of the houses, he used to tell them about it in no uncertain manner. I always remember him shouting out to put that big light out.
Then during the First World War, my auntie, she was a conductress. And
On the tramcars?
yes,
Oh.
and she was, as it happened, she was on duty the night that the air raid came when their house was destroyed, so she wasn't in it. And my grandmother, it was the first time that persuaded her to come out of the house. But
This is the house, your grandmother's house?
in Britannia Road,
Yes.
and that was in the First World War.
Yes.
And it was funny when we'd always gone up to stay with her too. She said, come up to me. And we was going to stay with her while the sirens came. And the siren was in Britannia Road over the police station. And we always used to call it, oh, Tin Lizzie's going. And we used to go up to my grandma's. Well, this night, as it happened, I don't know why, they said, oh, you better come in this cellar. And we went in a cellar in yard. And they could hear all this commotion going off and that. And we didn't know till next morning that it was my grandmother's house. And when I came downstairs, we'd gone to bed in the dark light, and I comes downstairs and opened the kitchen door, and of course, as I opened the kitchen door, my grandmother's house was only there. And I says, oh, Mum, you better get up, it's my grandma's house that's gone. Of course, she got up like, and it was only the back part of the house. They could live in the front, but it had also helped to kill the big dog. It was a Great Dane. Someone had kicked it and made it a bit lame, and it was on the hearth rug. And this incendiary bomb, as it come through the attic, the back bedroom and the living room into the cellar, it caught the dog as it went through on its nose. And Jack Young, the fellow that used to kill horses, took it and destroyed him altogether. And he was a beautiful big dog. They called it Fritz. And then when Grandad, he used to have to sound the warning for cravens. When just after that, they went twice in one night. They'd just gone away and they were on the way back, and they went twice or something. And shock of that caused my granddad had to have a stroke. He were off for a while. My mother's youngest sister, who I'm called after, she went into my grandma's room and she says, are you there, Mother? So she says, yes. She says, well, I think we better get up. She says, because if this into Zeppelin that's coming over here, they weren't Zeppelins that raided Nottingham last week. And so my grandmother says, oh, they'll never get to Sheffield. She was also, oh, they'll never get to Sheffield. So she says, well, I'm afraid they have done. Well, when we heard that it was a Zeppelin coming over, everybody always saying, shh, you have to make a noise, because they said they could hear you. Well, we were in a tug, so they took us in this cellar. And then, you know, my grandmother had just got into that there Pace's billiard room cellar. When they come, they says, you better come out, your house is on fire. And she says, well, it's first time I've left it. And I think it was about the same day, or just round the same time, that she'd had a telegram to say that her son had got killed in the war. He was with the Canadian Royal Highlanders. He'd emigrated to Canada. And that was the one that used to drive the cars. And I know she had the shocks all at once. And, oh, it was terrible.
Yes, I remember when they had air raid, I think it was 1917, there's a plaque on Effingham Road tells you about it, a bit about it, facing Club where you was, but a little bit higher up in Cockers.
Yes.
The big plaque on wall, I don't know whether you've seen it or not.
Not noticed.
Oh yes, it's still there. And I remember sirens went, and no shelters and nothing. I tell you, there were mother and 6 of us, and a lot of other families, you know, we all went on Ritten Street wreck. I don't know if you read about that or not. we used to go over a playground. We all went on there, at it way up bombs, and we saw Zeppelin
Did you?
pass over, yeah. Well, they said like that they could have fetched him down with some guns at top of Manor Lane. And they said they don't fetch him down because he'd have done more damage when he come down than what he would with his bombs. Oh yes, he dropped 2 bombs at Princess Street and Corby Street, Trent Street, Woodburn Hill, then there was some up Pittsmoor. I just forget how many he dropped altogether, but you know, it was a terrible thing in them days.
Yes. And did you, if you say there was no shelters, so
No, there were no shelter.
what did you do? Just
You just sat in open ground, out at road, you see, in case of buildings and
I
that, you see.
Yeah. Did they make a lot of damage when the bombs dropped?
Well, it did to these houses and that, you know. Oh, aye, there were several killed.
Do you remember the Zeppelins coming over
I
Sheffield?
do, yeah. My Zeppelin coming over.
What did they look like, the Zeppelin?
Great big balloons in the sky. They're frightened having a go at them in case they caused more trouble if they came down. If they one of them came down, they caused more trouble than it would be. That's what they were. One came down in Princess. They dropped some bombs in Princess Street, Norfolk Bridge, Princess Street, and there was a chap at Winkerman Hill on the go, and he wanted to have a go, and I wouldn't let him. He says, I'll fetch it down. And they told him, he said, well, you do more damage if you fetch it down. And we wouldn't let it out what he did.
But then the Zeppelins coming and dropping the bombs. You could see these Zeppelins in the sky. They didn't go very fast, especially when they're dropping the bombs. They just went slowly then and just, well, you could run as fast but in here. I don't think they went more than 20 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. Mind that was only for dropping bombs, but if when they're scaring back home, then go more than that. But they were a wonderful thing to look at up in the sky, though, driving a great big envelope, cigar floating about. And that's where they used to throw the bombs from then.